So Steve players have kind of been going crazy recently, and I wanted to talk about the current situation that is happening with top players and viewers alike wanting to ban Steve. You have seen players like Onin win regionals and majors. You have seen people like Yanni make upsets. You have seen Jake make upsets and Didi make upsets. And of course, culminating with Akola, the Japanese Steve player who is probably top 3 in the world at the moment, kind of decimating the Gimvitational and also tournaments in Japan. So what's going on with Steve? What's happening? Why are people so mad? And also, what is my take on it? Well, first off, subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. I'm going to be streaming on YouTube more in general. You can become a member if you want to. Anyway, let's get into it though. So Steve is a really silly character, in my opinion, or in my tier list that I literally just put out. I think it was still my last video, because I haven't uploaded in the past week or so. I put Steve in number 10, with room to grow is in my head. And I think that either way, he's still potentially, he's top 10 for sure, maybe top 5, maybe top 3. He is currently the character with the most results, because like so many people are doing well with him, whereas like Byleth, it's just kind of Leo. And you know, Aegis, it's kind of just like Shuton and Cosmos. There's not a lot of representation for a lot of the characters that are doing well, except for Steve and Rob. But Rob players aren't really making it super far in their tournaments. By the way, Zachary's coming back, which I'll make another video about, but I'm excited for him. So what's going on with Steve? Again, for reference, I was pro ban in Brawl for Meta Knight. But the thing is, the reason it was like that in Brawl was because Meta Knight shaped the meta. Not because he was the best character, which he was, and not because even he's the one that made the ledge grab limit, because that ended up being very healthy. Or he's the one that, had the most results, which, by the way, he did by such a significant margin it wasn't funny. In Ultimate, the most, the highest percentage of a character in like top 64 is Rob, which generally has like 4 to 8 Rob players in top 64, which is at most an 8th or 12.5%. And then generally they don't make top 8, maybe Zomba does, right? But shout out to Zachary coming back. I'm excited to watch him as well. But in Brawl, the Meta Knight players were everywhere. It was, first off, probably the winner of the tournament was a Meta Knight player. Basically every like top 8 had at least 4 Meta Knights in it, 5 Meta Knights probably, and then you'd have like an Ice Climbers and maybe me, or like a Falco or a Diddy or a Snake, and generally it would be like 5 Meta Knights and then a sprinkling of those people, or like maybe the breakout star of the tournament, and then there would be like 10 or 11 Meta Knights in top 16, and then like 16 to 20 Meta Knights in top 32. It was everywhere. Almost every single match at a tournament had a Meta Knight in it. Whether it was a Ditto, whether it was a character versus Meta Knight, whether it was two players that didn't play Meta Knight, and then one of them counterpicked Meta Knight. There were plenty of top players that didn't play Meta Knight, ended up picking Meta Knight for characters like Ice Climbers and stuff like that. And also another reason that I wanted to ban Meta Knight was because Meta Knight specifically is the reason we banned a ton of stages in Brawl, because Meta Knight was he was already the best character, and then he got free counterpicks like Brinstar and Rainbow Cruise and Frigate and Delfino Plaza and Halberd. There were literally like 7 to 8 stages that were like, by today's standards, super not good, right? But like back then, people were like, yeah, it's fine, because Brawl's like a floaty or slower game, so it's fine to have these weirder stages. And Meta Knight said no, like you're not allowed to, which then restricted the rule set, which basically shut out a bunch of mid tiers that needed those counter picks, or basically got rid of their usefulness, because you were never going to see a Yoshi on Rainbow Cruise because it was banned, so there was no reason to play Yoshi. And then regardless, 1, Meta Knight was still winning, and 2, it just basically linearized the meta, where it's like, okay, even though these characters were already super good, like Falco, Diddy, and Olimar, which were like the 3 other top 4 characters, and like Pikachu was around that in my opinion, they just basically got way stronger. Ice Climbers too, right? So Ice Climbers were also ridiculous, clearly. And then it's like, cool, so we banned all of the bad stages for those characters because Meta Knight was too good on them. So then suddenly they got a really big artificial boost because all the stages got banned. It wasn't like it was, oh, Meta Knight's good or Meta Knight's annoying. It was Meta Knight is shaping literally everything about the meta, because we have to put so much work in to make sure he isn't literally winning everything, that then it created a bunch of problems for the meta. And Steve isn't doing that. Steve isn't making us ban stages. Steve isn't even good on, Steve's best stages, in my opinion, are barely even legal in current meta. But at the same time, he is ridiculous. He is super strong. Steve is a character that literally he's so unique, obviously, because he can make blocks, and he's resource management, and he has all this crazy stuff that people are now discovering is kind of broken. Shout outs to Izop, by the way, making the Steve Sucks video, even though now Steve is arguably the best character quicker in the game results-wise, so that's fun. But anyway, Steve, has blocks. He has crazy combos, he has stage control, he has edge guarding, he has disengage tools, he has burst options. What is, wrong with the character, basically? Not that much, in my opinion. One of Steve's biggest strengths is the fact that there are so many Steve's players going around, right? I mentioned like six of them before. There's also ones in Europe that have made upsets over like Gluto and other European players, but I'm less familiar with them because I don't really watch the European tournaments for no particular reason. I just don't really watch them, so I don't really know the Steve players. But the Steves in the US and in Japan, mostly Akola, have been ridiculous. And the thing is, they all play different. If you watch Jake versus Didi versus Yanni versus Akola versus Onin, which in my opinion are probably the 5 main Steves right now, they play entirely different. None of them, it's not like a better version of one of them. Like, if you were to compare the Pikachus, right, you have like me, who's the more aggressive Pikachu, and Shiny Mark, who's a bit more like spacing neutral game type of Pikachu, and then the other Pikas kind of play like one of us, but not as proficient. H4 is more of a neutral Pika, so he falls more into the Shiny Mark category, and then like DM plays more like me, but in the lower category. Whereas the Steve players, none of them play the same, not even remotely. Yanni fishes for plays the game and wants different hits than Jake, who wants different hits than Akola, who has different setups than Onin. Like, they're all very different. So what do? Basically, my understanding is that people in this game, in this community, feel entitled to understanding a matchup when they have not put in the hours to understand the matchup. Again, I'm not saying every single top player that is complaining about Steve doesn't know the matchup. I saw Zenoto on Twitter. He's in Onin's region and generally takes sets from him. I don't know who has the winning record, but he generally knows the matchup and is like, yeah, this character's kind of ridiculous. So we should maybe talk about a ban, or at least like not just shut people down for talking about a ban on the character. Again, just for quick clarity's sake, I don't think we should ban the character. I think that's ridiculous. It's a clickbait title. Sorry about that. I like views. But I really think that banning Steve is ridiculous, considering he is just now becoming the results heavy character he is. Because before it was like, oh, Steve has no results, it's fine. Just even though he may be broken, like, he has no results, it doesn't matter. And now finally they're getting the results, and then instantly people are like, oh yeah, we need to ban him, even though it just started and literally we haven't developed enough counterplay yet. But I feel like it is really important to understand the counterplay against Steve, to understand the burst ranges that he wants to do. I've seen so many, like, I was vaguely watching the Invitational yesterday because I was busy, but I was still watching it in and out. I tried literally watching Akola sets because he's very interesting to me. He's super good player. God damn, he's so good. And people are like running into anvils that are kind of obvious and running into obvious minecarts and not knowing when to disengage versus when to engage, when to juggle him, when to edge guard him, how to edge trap him. And they're just kind of letting him play the game he wants to play. And obviously, if you're letting a character play the game they want to play, you're probably going to lose. I feel like a lot of people really understand how to play against most characters in this game because they play under the same set of rules. And obviously, Steve doesn't, because he can make blocks and disadvantage. He, has Diamond, so he's constantly, working towards an end game resource that is ridiculous. Diamond is so silly. I remember seeing Larry die at like 61 or 58 to like a forward smash at like roll distance from ledge. Crazy against Akola. That was insane. But at the same time, I feel like people, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I'm ranting, sorry. People feel entitled to understand a matchup after playing against the character for less than like 30 hours, which that's not really how matchups have worked historically. Ultimate is honestly a game that has simplified matchups quite a bit. Granted, there's 85 matchups or however many fucking characters there are in this game, so too many characters that are good, right? You have to know the matchups for most of these characters, but they kind of fall into categories, right? Where it's like, oh, you have your general zoner characters that generally have the same game plan, and then you break it down depending on their options. Because in general, against zoners, you want to force them into the corner and then make them pick an option because they're uncomfortable, because they want stage control, because if you hit them, they're going to be off stage, and basically no zoner is good at getting off the ledge or recovering. Like, they either get edge guarded or edge trapped really heavily. That includes Samus and Snake and Duck Hunt and Pac-Man, maybe a little less so because Pac-Man has more scrappy buttons, but that's why Pac-Man is broken and probably the best zoner. unless you consider Steve a zoner, but I don't really. Then you have the general rushdown of like, okay, I need to look out for empty jumps and then understand their frame data, so know what to add a shield, and also remember to backdash, but also keep in mind that they might overshoot, so sometimes you have to dash forward, and then you can, again, segment that based on is it Fox, or is it Roy, or is it Chrom, or is it Pika? You can generally break down matchups into, maybe like 5 to 9 categories, and then figure out the specifics of each individual character. Then their combo routes, where to DI, all that type of stuff. But Steve is incredibly unique, and there is not another character like him. He is creative mode. He can do so many things, which is why you see all the different Steve players play entirely differently and still see success. There's not really a right way to play the character, which I feel like a lot of the times there is maybe like a right 1 or 2 ways to play a character, for the most part. And then Steve goes, yeah, there's like 7 or 8 for one character. Plus, by the way, I can just zero to death you if I'm competent enough at the combos, which, by the way, none of the Steves that are currently playing are, which is crazy to me that you still don't really see NIL combos in tournament sets. I think like Akola got 1 in the Invitational. Maybe also Yanni got 1. I know he got an NIL F smash against Riddles, which was really good, but it wasn't, not a full combo type of thing. But either way, Steve can play in a bunch of different ways, and because of that, you really need to understand how he plays. A perfect example, MVD has played Jake a couple times. I think it's like 2-1 MVD's favor in terms of tournament sets. And when he had to play Onin at Combo Breaker, he was like very confident. I was talking about it. He's like, yeah, like I know the matchup. And then he played Onin, and then Onin bodied him, with all due respect. Like Onin played super well, and MVD comes off the stage and he's like, I thought I knew that matchup. Turns out I didn't. I know Jake. I don't remember if MVD's played other Steves before, but like he knew a version of the character, not the character. And I feel like there are other characters that are kind of like that you need a ton of experience against, like Snake. There are a bunch of different ways to play Snake, in my opinion. And if it's a matchup you don't know, you're going to get blown up because you're going to not know how to juggle. You're going to get hit by grenades. You're going to not know which combos of yours are absolutely true. And you're going to, get frustrated when you can't combo the character. You're not going to know how to hit him off of Cypher. You're not going to know how to edge guard him or deal with grenade or like know the timings for everything. And it's really frustrating and annoying to run up against that and fight against it. But the thing is, Snake existed in Brawl, so a lot of people knew the matchup from Brawl, and then he was very common, especially early meta in Smash Ultimate, so a lot of people learned the matchup and got better at it, and now are confident against Snake, at least a lot of top players, right? By like hitting Snake's feet and knowing that, don't overextend, and then if he pulls a grenade, grab him, stuff like that. But Steve is the new version of that character, but people don't have the hundreds of hours of backlog of matchup experience. I feel like, honestly, the understanding of top players in this game is generally pretty low when it comes to understanding new characters. Again, people literally going, oh my god, there's no answer to Mithra Nair. Even when I watch top players get landed in front of by Mithra, which is a -10 aerial, and then you can just grab it as every normal grab character in the game. Literally, if you have a 7 frame or faster grab, which is like most of the characters in the game, like 70% of the characters in this game, you can just grab it for free. And people just won't do that, won't know how to shield it. People still not punishing down airs on, like Fox's down air on shield. A lot of people just don't understand literally so many things about this game, myself included, I'm sure, in some aspects. But obviously, I think I'm a well-studied player. But, like Light and Mars not knowing that shield is frame 1 type of thing. And again, not like calling them out specifically, but just like, in general, the understanding of this game, I feel like by a lot of top players is low because you can just kind of game feel or play your character really well or just like play against the player, whereas people aren't studying. And Steve is definitely a character you have to study. He's ridiculous. You need to understand how to deal with minecart and just be above him and then have an aerial out. You have to know how to deal with Anvil, and by that, I mean just avoid it because there's not really anything to do about Anvil otherwise, and then you have to like see which side Steve jumps off of in terms of his jump forward or backwards to know which side to roll to so you don't get shield poked by the second hit, or you can parry the second hit, I'm pretty sure. And where the spacings are. I've seen so many people like not know that you can run under the blocks, and you just break the bottom one, you can just run under them, and they're just stuck breaking like 3 sets of blocks, which allows Steve to get like 6 more materials, which is like a fifth of the way to diamond, closer than he really should. I feel like the SDI actually was pretty good. Watching the Invitational, I think generally the SDI against his combos was pretty good. I think Gact had the best SDI. I think, was it Gact that played Yanni? I don't remember. I saw him like SDI to a platform, I'm pretty sure. Which you can do again, as Steve's forward air specifically is very SDIable. It has like a ton of hit lag. But I feel like a lot of people just don't know the matchup. They haven't put in the hours because, one, no one wants to play on Wi-Fi. and learn a matchup, especially because Steve is a character that's like, hey, react to this, react to this, react to this. And as someone that tries to learn the Steve matchup and understand Steve because I play the character, he's very technical, I like the character, right? Like, I understand him a lot. Not saying I would beat Akola, I'm just saying, just as a side note. But like Steve just will, or like it's really hard to learn the matchup on Wi-Fi because it's like, hey, react to all these things, and then you can't because it's Wi-Fi and there's 5 extra frames of delay, which really isn't conducive to learning. But again, I feel like that these players, and I could be wrong. Again, if you're a top player watching this video, correct me in the comments. I'm down to be wrong. While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe, by the way. But I feel like a lot of people play against a character for like 5 to 7 hours and are like, I should understand everything about the matchup by now, when that's almost never been the case for other Smash games, basically ever, unless you play a super overwhelming broken character that you're just going to do your options against the opponent and win, right? And there are certain characters like that. I mean, there have been historically characters like that, like Palutena, especially pre-patch. But a lot of characters in Smash 4, Brawl, and, Ultimate are just like, I'm going to do my thing and then try to adapt to the player because my character's thing is so good. And you can't really do that versus Steve. Steve is definitely a character that has his game plan. He's like a boss, right? Where he has like different phases and different attacks he can do, and you have to understand how to deal with all of them in order to not lose and get 2-shotted or 3-shot. The reason I think that asking for a ban is ridiculous right now, what do we do, right? Because like that's the option. Well, one, you gotta understand the character. Either play the character, watch videos on the character. I have a lot of videos about Steve. I'm sure the Steve players also have videos about the character. There are plenty of guides. There's a lot of stuff that you can do when it comes to watching and learning Steve. And two, gotta put your ego aside. Trust me, I have an ego. I understand that it's hard to accept that these players are better than you or are just beating you, even if they are or not better than you, right? Like it's like, damn, they really didn't have results before. But there's always a turning point for someone to have results. Like people aren't always slowly getting better over time. There have been plenty of players that, bam, all of a sudden got better. Obviously, there was a huge jump of that from offline before the pandemic to when offline tournaments kind of returned because suddenly there was a year and a half of experience that people either got from Wi-Fi, new characters, bunch of crazy stuff, right? Like clearly people were like, oh, Min Min's gonna be a problem, and then it's kind of just Proto, and then maybe some Min Mins here and there that get a couple of upsets. But Steve is definitely a character that is obviously ridiculous. He is super strong. Again, I put him minimum top 10 in my list. And what do you do about it? You learn, you deal with the counterplay, and you keep playing the game. I feel like, even I'm probably contributing to this with the title of this video, but I like clickbait. But I feel like the community really hasn't learned about like, hey, maybe stop shitting on a character incessantly and calling for a ban because it's going to divide the community and then make it more hostile for the players that play that character, just like that happened in Smash 4 with Ryu mains because that character is broken and Cloud mains because that character is broken, and obviously Bayo because she was ridiculous. And I feel like we're falling down that rabbit hole again, which I'm not particularly a fan of. As someone that has just seen this with my, 15, 17-year career, which is crazy that like my career is longer than like Akola is born. That's a wild sentence to say. I'm fucking old. 29, baby. But I feel like it's a really scary conversation to have, especially when a character just begins to get results. Especially because like commentators and top players, if you accept a character and you talk about it in a positive manner, or like maybe in a frustrated manner, but like you don't go like, this fucking character is bullshit, he's so carried, he's so stupid, people are generally not going to echo your really salty sentiments unless you do it consistently. And then the community overall sees a Steve on stream, and then suddenly that Steve player is getting a bunch of shit. Which granted, Twitch chat, lol, YouTube comments, lol, but like it happens. It happens in real life. The amount of times I've seen Steve picked by people that don't know the Steve player on like a stream that's like a round one pool type stream, and then people go, ugh, is ridiculous. And I feel like top players definitely need to probably be less bad about that, because it's really shaping the community in a specific way that is kind of unwelcome. And there's already been a lot of people that are unwelcome in the scene and treated poorly, and we really don't need more of that, in my opinion. So yeah, what do you think about this video? As always, social media and Panda partner stuff is down below. Sorry for the bit of a rant. It was kind of tangential and stuff like that, but hey, I like talking about the game, and y'all say you like when I talk about the game like that, so I hope you all enjoyed. Peace.